Welcome back to That Baseball Pod, ladies and gentlemen. We are here to recap the trade deadline. It's been a busy week. I have Adam with me again. Welcome back, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's been a while. We're into the dog days of summer with this baseball season. I'm pretty excited to be here. Excited to talk some baseball. Excited to see who maybe won this trade deadline and maybe who maybe didn't.
Yeah. It's been a busy week. That might be an understatement. Really a busy month because like all the way back to like the first week of July, we had some trades going down, some big names. But it's been a real busy week. I'll say this on the front end. I'm not going to say maybe, there will be some trades we probably just forget about altogether. There's also probably going to be some, mid to lower level trades that we just don't mention that could end up being more consequential than we think at this moment.
Right.
But we're going to go ahead and talk about winners, maybe losers, talk about buyers, sellers, things like that. The normal trade discussions that come with these times of the year. So let's just get right into it, man. Give me your biggest winner of the trade deadline. Let's just start with that.
Okay, one of my favorite teams' activity during this trade deadline was the San Diego Padres. And despite the fact that they keep doing what the Padres do and they keep giving up all of these prospects, they gave up like 6 more top prospects this trade deadline. And they did the Juan Soto trade just 2 years ago. They went and got a closer. They went and got one of the best closers in the game for Tanner Scott. And with him came another reliever that is really going to bolster that bullpen. And it just tells me that they are really trying to go for it here. So they're one of my favorite teams this trade deadline.
Yeah, I know people, I guess, outside of like the Padres fan base and things like that always were like, oh, the Padres always tend to give up their top prospects and go for it, right? But then it seems like we have the same conversation every year. Like, I have no doubt that they just gave up 3 of their top 5 prospects next year or, down the road. They're so good at rebuilding and replenishing that farm system that I feel like we'll be having the same conversation again next year with them. Like, they're one of those teams that I have no worries that are going to end up rebuilding that farm system. Also, like, the weird thing is with the way they do prospect rankings, like, we only get them at the beginning and the end of the year. So while they may have been top 5 prospects at the beginning of the year, that doesn't necessarily mean they're performing like top 5 prospects right now. So there's also that part of the conversation. Yeah, if I had to pick one team, I'm gonna go with the Orioles. I like what the Orioles did. They feel like they're going all in. Like, it really felt like to me, like, I think at some point last year I was picking the Orioles every episode when I was talking about the World Series. And even as a Rangers fan, I'm still shocked that we got through the Orioles.
You sure?
Yeah, have to rep it, man. It just means too much. But yeah, I really like what the Orioles did. They go get Zach Eflin. They go get Trevor Rogers. Eloy Jimenez, maybe there's something there with him. He tends to be hurt a lot, but we'll see. Like, if you can platoon him and he's a good platoon bat for them, that's a solid addition. Yeah, man, I really like what the Orioles are doing. I felt like last year was their year. This year, they're just as good, I would say, and they're going for it.
I was going to say, I agree. I think the Orioles had a great trade deadline. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was the Trevor Rogers trade, where they ended up giving up Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers. And those 2 guys are incredible prospects. They're coming up through this Baltimore system that is a machine for MLB ready talent. And I think it becomes kind of you become kind of reflective on it as like, oh man, did they give up way too much for Trevor Rogers? And truthfully, they might have. However, those kind of prospects are a dime a dozen in the Orioles farm at this moment. So if you have them, move them. And if Trevor Rogers can be a 4th, 5th rotation guy for you, then you might win the World Series with that kind of stuff. So they're in win now mode. And I really like these moves that they made with the Eloy and with, who else did they get?
Zach Eflin, Anthony Dominguez.
That's right. I'm wearing the Rays hat.
Yeah, and they gave up Austin Hayes. That's a big name for them.
Right. But yeah, I think it certainly shows that they are trying to win now.
Yeah, and I think if you're an Orioles fan, like, as nice as it is to have that farm system loaded up, I think if you're an Orioles fan, you've been waiting so long to get back to this, right? Like you almost don't care. Like give up who you got to give up to win right now. Like if I'm Orioles fans may feel different, but like from the outside looking in, like as long as we're holding on to Jackson Holiday, like I'm cool, you know. If you're getting me, yeah, I'm happy for that because the first time he got called up, I don't want to say it was too fast because he was rolling, right? But it kind of sucked to see him struggle. Like you don't want to see somebody that's supposed to be, one of the next guys struggle like that. So I'm glad to see he had that moment.
Right.
Yeah, I really like what the Orioles are doing. If you're in their position, I think you have to go for it. And like you said, there's so many prospects there. Just it is what it is when you got to give them up. We got to talk about the Dodgers. When you're talking about making moves, you have to talk about what the Dodgers did. They have, there's a lot of injuries to their rotation this year. Yamamoto, Walker Buehler out right now, so they go get Jack Flaherty and not pitching related, but they go get Tommy Edman, and then they get Rosario again after they just did it last year, which was kind of funny. But they go get Flaherty's the big addition there for them. What does that do for them?
Part of me just wonders where they're going to put all of these shortstops. I feel like every single year they acquire some new shortstop or two that they have to find a spot for. But no, Jack Flaherty is going to mean the whole world to this Dodgers lineup. Well, not lineup, rotation. This perpetually injured Kershaw's just coming back. Buehler's out. They need pitching more than anything. And Flaherty has been a premier pitcher in the game this year. So I think it makes a whole lot of difference. Tommy Edman, kind of. I mean, he's not who he once was in like 2021, that area. But Flaherty, for sure. Yeah. But Flaherty, I think, is really going to make a difference. And I also think Kopech, who is also a piece of that 3-team trade with the Cardinals and White Sox. I think he's going to be great out of the pen, whether it's as a setup guy or whether it's straight up as a closer in some scenarios. So I think the Dodgers had a good deadline in that aspect.
Yeah, maybe we talk about the Brewers at some point later in the pod if they come up. But I've read that the Brewers and Dodgers have started 16 different starting pitchers this year. That's crazy. Nuts.
Crazy.
That's insane. And the Dodgers, what's funny is the Dodgers have a million good ones. Like they're all good, right? Like I feel like the injured Dodgers pitchers would be aces on some of these other teams in the league. So yeah, that's crazy for them. The Dodgers are the Dodgers. They're going to be in it at the end. I'm kind of shocked that that's all they did at the deadline. I just assumed they would go get even more, just because it's the Dodgers. But
it's one of those things. They almost certainly would have went and got Garrett Crochet, but Garrett Crochet came out, whether it was him or his agent that made this decision, said he wouldn't accept the trade unless he had a contract extension thereafter. So, I mean, that certainly must have shied away some teams, given how his style of pitching and how his style of pitching might leave him prone to injury and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that definitely tanked his trade value. And considering he's one of the best pitchers in the game this year, the asking price would have already been high. So, I mean, we live in a different scenario than we would have. But, I mean, he could have definitely been a Dodger. He probably would have been a Dodger if he hadn't come out and said that.
Yeah, for sure. Before we switch to losers or anything, let's maybe we should just go and look at all the top teams right now and see if we think they made any moves that were worthwhile or think. Let's follow up them with the Yankees. Obviously, the Yankees make a splash move and broke my heart as someone who's also a Marlins fan and went get Jazz. Happy for Jazz because apparently he's turned into Barry Bonds in New York. Yeah, 2 home runs in his first 2 games. Insane. You know what, man? We'll get into how it affects the Yankees, but the Rangers are my number 1 team, but I am a Marlins fan. Jazz is my favorite non-Ranger player. My favorite player in the league right now is Jazz. And it hurt to watch somebody with so much personality and emotion have to go play for the Marlins every day. And as much as it sucks for him to not be a Marlin anymore, this is so good for him. I was worried that the Yankees might kill his personality with, all their silly rules, but apparently not. So I love that. I love that for him. Is it enough for the Yankees? I think they probably could have went and get some pitching. I'm sure they tried, right? They were probably one of the teams trying to get Crochet.
They did get a few relievers. They ended up getting Mark Leiter Jr. from the Cubs, who since returning to baseball, he's been incredible. He literally hasn't given up a hit in 23 batters face, I think it was. I read that somewhere. So, yeah, I mean, he's a premier reliever, but they also need starting pitching. And they did not get one of the premier starting pitchers on the market. I'm sure they were in the mix for Flaherty, but they really didn't land that solid pitcher. However, I think Jazz really does change this lineup in a significant way.
Yeah, especially if he's going to – like what he's doing in the first two games is not going to be sustainable, obviously.
Right.
But if he can be a plus bat for them that in a lineup that already has Soto and Judge.
He doesn't even need to be a plus bat. I mean, think about whose spot he's taking from the leadoff spot. It's either Alex Verdugo playing in that outfield spot, or it's Trent Grisham, two guys who are absolutely abysmal this year. And when you look at Jazz Chisholm, who's had, before moving to the Yankees and going on this power surge, when he was with the Marlins, he's been having an okay year and a borderline decent year. And when you put that and you put that in the top of your lineup to protect guys like Soto, guys like Judge, who are all kind of protecting each other, it's hard to beat. And it's harder to pitch to the bottom half of the lineup because the front half of your lineup is so good.
And, on the fielding side, like he may not be an all-star at all these positions, but now all of a sudden he can play second, outfield. They got him playing third base over there. So like you got almost like he's becoming like a utility fielder.
Yeah.
And they have him, I think he's got like 2 years left under contract. He was going into arbitration next year, or at the end of the year. So they could have him for a while. I'm happy for Jazz. I don't know if it's enough for them to win. I still like the Orioles more than the Yankees, and that the AL wild card is a rough race. So
and don't sleep on those Red Sox in the East. They're pretty close to that third wild card spot. They're probably battling out with the Royals for that third wild card spot, but that'll be interesting to watch. The American League has a lot of parity, and it should be really cool down the stretch.
Yep, another top team in the AL is the Guardians. They go get one of your guys, Lane Thomas.
Yeah. It's a bummer because Lane Thomas was such a good ball player for Washington, so solid. He came from St. Louis in the John Lester trade back in 2021 when we had that huge fire sale, and he ended up being an all-star for the Nats, being like the best player on the team for these few years. And, getting that kind of value as a fan out of him and then getting this kind of trade value out of him is really important for the Nationals, I think. And I think the Guardians went and got their guy, solid outfield bat who will steal bases, excellent at getting on base. And the Nats go and get, I think his name's Clemmy, the reliever. I looked up his stuff, and I like the way he pitches. He has some big league stuff. So I'm pretty happy with that kind of trade. I think it works out for both sides.
Yeah, they also had Alex Cobb, who hasn't pitched yet. He was supposed to pitch the other day, and he got scratched because of a blister. So they added him too. So tough to say what he's going to be for them because we haven't seen him yet this year. But solid pitcher in the past, so maybe that helps them out. Astros and AL West, Astros and Mariners. Which team comes out better for you? Mariners made some splash with the names. They go get Randy.
Did the Astros even go get anybody?
They went get Kikuchi from.
Oh God! That trade was insane. Giving up Loper, Fido, and Wagner for Yusei Kikuchi, a guy who's climbing towards a 5 ERA. Yeah. I mean, I guess if you need him that bad, trade away guys who are top prospects, who the fans love. I have a lot of friends who are Astros fans, and I know a lot of people who love Joey Loperfido just because of the way he plays the game. and then they traded him away. I really couldn't believe. I thought he was going to be untouchable this trade deadline, especially for someone like Yusei Kikuchi. I couldn't believe that.
Listen, I'm all for the Astros throwing away their future for an average pitcher. I'm fine with it. Do it. Do what you got to do. I don't care. The Mariners go get Randy. They go get Yimi Garcia, Justin Turner too. But Randy is obviously the big ticket name there. I think that was the first actual big trade to drop.
That happened like last week.
Yeah, he's having for Randy's standards, he's having kind of a down year. But I mean, I love Randy Arozarena. So
yeah, look,
I don't remember what they gave. I don't remember what they gave up for him.
Hang on, I have it pulled up right here. Let me look.
But yeah, I mean, if you can, while you look it up, just like I think anytime you have a chance to add somebody like Randy Arozarena, like you're not going to convince me that that's a bad move because somebody's having a down season. Like I would now. I do get nervous anytime a team makes a trade with the Rays because I trust what the Rays are doing. Like, and we'll get into them in a little bit. But Randy, I don't know. Randy as a baseball player, as a person, seems like such a good addition all around to any team. So especially in the AL West, the AL West is tight. The Rangers can't make up their mind whether they want to be good or not. So so it's really a 2-team race between them and the Astros, the Mariners and the Astros.
Yeah, no question. I think that Randy Arozarena, I think he is obviously incredibly talented. I think when he's his best, he is the most valuable player on the ball field. He has a plus arm. He can hit whenever he's on. And the eye test, I don't know his advanced, fielding metrics, but I think he's a good fielder too. And he brings a sort of leadership to a team that I don't think the Mariners had, especially with J-Rod struggling the way he has been. I do tend to think Randy Arozarena tends to lean a little towards the overrated side just because he had the WBC in 2022, and that was such a breakout for him. In the 2020 postseason, one of the best postseasons of all time. Beyond that, I really struggle to see what he's done that can really move a needle for a playoff contending team. And especially for the Mariners, who, look, it's the Mariners' worst hitting team in baseball this year. They needed anything, and this works. He works, Justin Turner works. Anyone who can replace some of these guys who are like bottom of the league hitters will help you because their pitching staff is top notch. I mean, they have one of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball, if not the best. So, I mean, it works out. I've found it. The Mariners got Randy for Aiden Smith, Brody Hopkins, and a player to be named later. So, in all honesty, I don't know those guys. So I don't think there's some insane prospects that
it's worth the risk.
Yeah. I don't think that it's some insane prospects that the Mariners had to give up to get Randy. I think it's smart for the Rays, just kind of going for this fire sale kind of thing, offloading all these guys that might not be in the future plans. So It's weird to see the Rays rebuild like that, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I liken Randy to, which is funny because they're like best friends. As a Rangers fan, he's very much like Adolis Garcia. They not the same players. Adolis is more of a power hitter than Randy, but when they're hot and when they're on, you can make the argument they're the best player on the field. Like you said. Adolis may be a little bit better of a fielder than Randy is. He's got the Gold Glove under his belt from last year. But they're very much the heartbeat of a team and a locker room. When Adolis Garcia is on, when Randy Arozarena is on, like teams and fan bases buy into that. And I think it matters. I think you saw it last year with the Rangers. When Adolis got hot, it completely changed the Rangers' whole postseason. It just affects everybody around them. So I think if you can get Randy to get hot, it could change something for them. And when you're in a race as tight as they are with the Astros, you're looking for every edge you can get. And like we just said, they didn't give up a ton to get them, so I think it's worth it.
I'm not gonna lie. I worry about your Rangers, man.
It's tough. I don't like. I truthfully don't know how to feel. My gut says the season is over. It looked really good for a minute there. The last couple weeks, like all of July was nice. You're hot. You're in the situation where you got pitcher coming back, blanking on his name, not DeGrom.
Max.
No, Scherzer's back. Tyler Mahle.
Oh, Tyler Mahle.
Yeah. He's coming back. I assume they're waiting to see how the season goes before they decide on DeGrom. I think if they start winning, DeGrom's coming back. If they start falling apart, DeGrom's not going to come back. But you're getting Dane Dunning back. They just got Josh Young back. Evan Carter seems to be out for the season. Wyatt Langford's heating up. So it's like they're in this weird scenario where if they could just string together a solid month and a half, you got reinforcements coming, and then you have the team you had last year and then some, and you don't need moves. But it's hard to count on all these injured guys and Max Scherzer, who I still don't trust Max Scherzer. So it's like not only not trust him to be good, I don't trust him to stay healthy, even with this little bit left of the season. So I'm like, you're either going for it or you're not. I didn't necessarily want them to be sellers and go sell off Eovaldi and all these players that they were talking about possibly moving, but they do need to get younger in the rotation. Like they got a bunch of aging guys, and their prospects having Jack Leiter being kind of a bust in the majors this year hurts. Like, he was expected to be the guy. Now you just kind of, it's not even just him. Like they called up Owen White. He was meh. Like all these guys that are supposed to be their top pitching prospects just haven't panned out. So it hurts. I don't know. Like it's just a weird. It's like a purgatory, Like I don't know where they stand. I didn't want them to go be the Rays or be the Marlins and sell off all these players and do like a hard reset. Like you can't do that with the position they're in. They're too good to do that. But I don't know. They also weren't just one player away. I don't think.
Well, I think they did end up trading for a reliever this deadline.
Yeah, they went get Chafin, which is good. That's great.
Yeah,
I like it.
It works for the Rangers because the main difference that I see between the Rangers this year and the Rangers last year is the bullpen. I mean, the bullpen for the Rangers this year is bottom half of the league, like bottom 10 in the league. And a guy like Chafin is going to help. I don't know if it's really moving the needle per se, but we'll still have to see. They also ended up trading Michael Lorenzen, former Red, to the Royals, I believe it was. And I think he'll make a difference on the Royals.
Yeah, that's just that one I kind of expected. They got to, if DeGrom's coming back, Miley's coming back, they got to free up a spot in the rotation. Yeah. And you got Lorenzen as a rental. So it made the most sense. I don't know, man. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. They're 4.5 games back right now, so it's not outrageous to think they could come and take the AL West. The Astros have a ton of the Astros have some injuries right now. In August, the Rangers' August schedule is so brutal, but I think they play the Astros and Mariners multiple times, so they can make up some ground here.
Yeah,
it's just that for me, the biggest difference is the offense. Like last year's offense was unreal for the Rangers. And this year, it's tough. I think it all kind of went downhill when Josh Young got hurt. Josh Young came out this year looking like he was about to have a serious season, and it just kind of fell apart. Adolis isn't doing anything right now. It's tough. The bright spot for the Rangers has been Josh Smith. Josh Smith has been unbelievable this year, but that's getting in the weeds for it. Those three teams, I think I'm still going to pick the Astros to win the AL West. They're the Astros. Kyle Tucker's coming back soon.
They needed a moment to gather themselves after such a rocky start to the season. But, with Yusei Kikuchi, ironically, even though I'm ragging on that trade, I mean, I think he can help them down the stretch to help maybe have a few quality starts and win that division for them. So, I mean, it kind of feels like it's their division to lose at this point.
Yeah. We don't have to go division by division in the NL East. I'm going to throw out some of the better teams, and you tell me the moves you think mattered the most. Okay. We got Phillies, Braves, Mets, Brewers. Did we talk about the Padres? Yeah, we did talk. We started with the
We
Padres.
briefly talked about the Padres.
But just in the NL, what teams do you think made moves that matter? Like the Phillies go get Austin Hayes from the Orioles. Braves get Soler, I think was really their big move. Again, keep trading for the same players.
I thought that the Braves move was very interesting because it brought back not only Soler, but it also brought back Luke Jackson, who was also on that 2021 team when they won the World Series. It makes me wonder why they were really doing it. Luke Jackson might just be incentive, come back home, like come hang out, because he's an aging reliever who hasn't been great. But Soler is going to provide some serious value to that offense, considering that those guys, a lot of guys on that team are having not necessarily down offensive years, but down from where they were offensive years. And not having Acuna really hurts. So Soler in the outfield or at DH, wherever you want to put him, I'd rather have him in the outfield than Marcell Ozuna. But I mean,
Soler's one of my favorite players in the league. Another former Marlin. The Marlins making other teams better since 2003. Sorry, we'll get into it. I didn't want to derail you. Go ahead.
But yeah, I think that's I think that was an effective trade for the Braves. I feel like they could have went and did more with this deadline. I think their starting pitching has some holes in it. So they were probably in contention for a guy like Flaherty, but might not have been willing to give up what was necessary to get him. And when it comes to teams like the Mets, they went and got a handful of guys that I don't look at and be like, they're needle movers. I mean, they went and got Jesse Winker from the Nationals. I mean, he's been good, not great. They went and got
Blackburn.
That's who I was thinking of. I was about to say they went and got a starter too. Paul Blackburn, I actually really like his stuff. I think he's a very good pitcher. I don't know if it'll translate to New York because who knows what you'll do. There's a long history of guys failing once they play for a New York team. But I like his stuff, and I'm not a Mets fan by any means, but I hope he does well. And it really helps the Mets in because Kodai Senga went down. Paul Blackburn is going to be able to fill that role, maybe not as well as Kodai Senga did, but I think he is going to be an effective pitcher for them. And if they can score runs, then I don't see why he can't be a successful pitcher.
Yeah, they might get Ryan Stanek too.
I saw he got lit up the first appearance back for the Mets. I was like, oh, that's kind of nice.
Kodai's the timing of the Kodai Senga injury probably really hurt them because they probably couldn't get Flaherty. It was so late, you kind of just throwing stuff out there to try to pull off a last second move. We talked about the Brewers having a ton of pitching injuries, just like the Dodgers. They went get Frankie Montas and Aaron Savali. And listen, I don't know off the top of my head, and I don't have it in front of me how they've been this year. But if the Brewers go get a pitcher, I assume he's going to become a stud. Whatever you would do it elsewhere, you're going to become good. So
I mean, that's fair. But yeah, I watch a lot of Reds games. Frankie Montas has been actively bad, borderline liability for the Reds through the starting rotation. It feels like he's given up 4 or 5 runs every single start. And with an offense like the Reds, who's so hit or miss, I think that he just wasn't the right fit. And if the Brewers can fix him, more power to him. I mean, I don't love Frankie Montas as a pitcher at this moment in his career. And it's the same kind of thing with Aaron Savali. Like he hasn't had a great year or a great resurgence since his prime. So, I don't know if this is really needle moving for the Brewers, but it does fill spots that needed to be filled. So maybe they can keep that first place spot from the Cardinals, who are marching off.
Yeah, the Pirates are right in the mix too. They went make a couple moves. I think it was Brian Dela Cruz and IKF.
Oh, they also went and got IKF. They also traded Quinn Priester. They're probably the fifth guy in their rotation. I really love Quinn Priester as a pitcher. He hasn't had a great year this year, but I really like his stuff. I've liked it since he got drafted, and he really helps out Boston with their pitching problems. And the Pirates get a really, really good prospect out of it, Nick York, who just got promoted to AAA a month ago or so. and he was killing it in Double-A. I mean, he's one of the highly touted prospects in baseball. And for a Pittsburgh team, which is so pitching oriented with all their young pitchers, with Skeens, Jared Jones, Mitch Keller, with all of those guys, I can totally see Nick York making a difference for this team if they're trying to make a playoff push, whether it's this season or next season, if they decide to call him up.
Yeah, one of my best friends is diehard Pirates fan, and this was one he was expecting, was Quinn Priester. He was really hoping for Jazz. The Pirates needed a bat, so he was really hoping to go get Jazz. Brian Dela Cruz, decent addition.
He's really good.
Yeah, so we'll see what they do. I don't know if they catch the Pirates. Seem like it's a next year. If you're asking me about teams that could make a jump next year, I think the Pirates could be at the top of that list. As long as you get the same production from Jared Jones, obviously Skeens, as long as he stays healthy, which they're managing his innings a lot, which tells me they're more so looking forward to next year a little bit.
Well, I was just going to say it's the Tim Lincecum problem. Like you have this young pitcher. He's a rookie. He started the All-Star game. He has the best stuff of any pitcher in baseball, probably. And I mean, it's a mirror to how Tim Lincecum's career started, basically. And Tim Lincecum, if his career ended, his prime ended after like 7 years. Like, so, and after that short prime, he wasn't nearly the same pitcher, and his baseball career ended up being very short. So I think people look at young pitchers nowadays, especially guys with stuff like Skeens, and they don't want him going 8-9 innings, throwing 130 pitches every start. Right. So, I mean, I totally see why they're managing his workload, especially considering he is most likely going to be their ace for, in their eyes, probably the next decade or so.
Right. Yeah, it's just it's a fan perspective, right? To just really want him to go get. He's got 2 no-hitters technically, I guess, through 7 innings he went through. Like, I think it's just a fan perspective being like, just let him go get one. But it makes sense. It makes all the sense in the world. He clearly has like a 100 pitch cutoff. Is kind of, if you look at those games, it's always 100 pitches. Once he hits 100 pitches, he's out of there. Mm-hmm. So, and it makes sense. Like, especially like you talked about Lincecum, and nowadays it seems like pitchers are getting hurt even more. So you don't risk it, especially when you got this guy who, we've talked about it in our group chat, may already be the best pitcher in baseball. Like, if somebody made that argument, I don't even think I'd push back on it.
It's tough to argue. I mean, if you look at his stuff and look at the way how he's pitched, I mean, it's tough to argue.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch. Any other of the top teams you want to talk about before we kind of switch to losers or sellers?
Let me look through real quick, see if there were any that I wanted to mention.
We didn't really talk much about the Phillies. I mentioned they went get Austin Hayes. Who else did they go grab? Carlos Estevez from the Angels.
Yes. For the Carlos Estevez trade, I was really a big fan of that trade because it's the perfect role filler for the Phillies, who needed another left-handed arm in the bullpen. And when they traded for Austin Hayes, they traded away one of their premier setup guys in Sir Anthony Dominguez. So I think that role is going to be able to be filled by Carlos Estevez, who I think is better than Sir Anthony Dominguez. So I think that was an overall really big trade for the Phillies. And I think for a team that is like 100% going to make the playoffs, if not win that division, I think it's really going to be a big deal come playoff time.
Yeah, the Phillies are my World Series pick. If you're asking me right now, that's my. I go Orioles. Phillies is my World Series matchup with the Phillies winning.
That's completely fair.
This Phillies team is amazing. Let's switch over to losers. It's such a weird conversation. I don't want to call these teams like losers at the deadline. It's more like probably could have done more, or probably could have done something. I look at teams like maybe the A's. You got a couple young guys. The Mason Miller one, I guess, makes sense because he's got so much team control left. But also the haul you probably could have got for Mason Miller would have been incredible. Like any number of these top teams would have been lining up to get Mason Miller. Brent Rooker, you could have got something for him. So the A's, I'm like, it's these teams where they're in like make a decision, choose a direction is how I want to classify these teams. So are there any teams like that to you that just didn't do enough?
I think the A's are a big one. I think not moving Brent Rooker is horrible, considering how much you would have got for a guy like Brent Rooker. I mean, the Yankees were probably in talks for a guy like Brent Rooker before they got Jazz, but the asking price might have been too steep. If you're the A's, you have to make a move here. You have to go get more prospects. You have to set yourself up to win here soon because you are conceding the season. You are conceding every season for this year, the last year, the year before that, maybe the next year from this. I really don't understand what they were thinking. They moved Blackburn, but the return for Blackburn is minimal to none compared to the return you would have got for a guy like Brent Rooker. I think it's good for them to keep on to a guy like Lawrence Butler. I mean, he's young. He can be on your team for a long time and be effective. But I feel like not moving Rooker is one of the worst things that could have happened to the A's.
Yeah. I agree with that on Rooker. I understand not moving Mason Miller. When you have that much team control, I understand that. Personally, I would have done it.
Me too.
All you would have got. But I understand it. But yeah, there's not a ton of other teams. Like maybe the White Sox, because they couldn't get anything for Crochet. I feel like they would have liked to. Obviously, that hurts. There was a lot of talk about Luis Robert maybe getting moved. And the White Sox are one of those teams. Go ahead.
Not moving those two guys is an absolute bummer for the White Sox. I mean, Garrett Crochet, for what he could have went for, he could have bolstered your farm for a long time. Not a long time, but for the near future. Like you could get several top prospects for a guy like Garrett Crochet. And then the same for Luis Robert. And if you package those guys together, and then at that point, we're talking about a Juan Soto style haul that like kind of like the Nationals got. And obviously, it probably wouldn't be that great, but
right.
It would be akin to that. Like you would get numerous prospects. And at that point, that's what the White Sox need. They don't need to be buying or selling or they don't need to be buying or hanging on to these guys who are obviously not moving the needle as is. You need to build a whole new team. And it feels like they were just scared to completely rebuild.
Now, how much of the Crochet situation is on them? Like, if he's not willing to sign it, like, if that's the reason, if that's, the rumors are that's the reason, can you fault them for not moving him? Like, if he's not willing to be moved, they're still losers because it didn't happen. But
it's partial. That definitely plays into this. But I think it also had to do with the asking price, and I think it also had to do with effort. I think the White Sox lack effort. If they would have made the effort to work out a real deal for Garrett Crochet, it would have happened because everyone wanted Garrett Crochet. So I think if they really put the effort in to make a trade, to really do something this deadline, it would have happened, and they just fell short.
Yeah, There's no excuse for not getting Luis Robert. If they got Eloy Jimenez out of there, they definitely could have got Luis Robert moved. So that's tough. I don't have any other teams really off the top of my head that I'm looking at. There's teams that were kind of in the middle and they made some moves, and I'm like, okay, you're still maybe in the same spot. The Royals is one where I'm like, Michael Lorenzen could help them a lot, but also is it enough?
I think the Royals are a team that's already so talented, especially in their pitching. I think even one pitcher, even if it's a middle of the road pitcher, a guy like Michael Lorenzen is really going to affect the way the season plays out for them. Michael Lorenzen, he's matured a lot as a pitcher since he was with Cincinnati or since he was with the Giants or any of those teams before. He's really figured out some stuff. He lacks command a little bit when it comes to within the strike zone. I think he can be super beneficial, and he's had good seasons before. So I think Michael Lorenzen is going to make a difference for the Royals, and I think that was a good trade for them, personally. They also went
he
and
was
got Hunter
given
Harvey.
yeah he was giving the Rangers some solid outings.
Yeah.
He had a couple bad starts here and there, but he was having a really solid season. So we'll see. But the AL is so stacked. I know they're fighting for the wild card spot right now, but the AL is so stacked that I don't know. It's tough. I want to talk about the biggest sellers and how you feel about how they went about this. I would say, in my eyes, the three biggest sellers were, number one, the Marlins. I think the Marlins are very obviously the biggest sellers. The Rays kind of sold, but also will still probably be good because it's the Rays and that's what they do. The Blue Jays, I think, would be like the top three. The Marlins. Let's talk about exactly what the Marlins did here. So these are the players the Marlins traded away: Tanner Scott, Jazz Chisholm. They waived Josh Bell, Brian Dela Cruz, Trevor Rogers, AJ Puck, Brazaban, Brian Hoeing. I think that's all of them. And in return, they got 16 prospects back, including Connor Norby, like you talked about, Kyle Stowers, Augustine Ramirez. They got 3 of the Padres' top 5, and 9 of these 16 prospects are instantly in their top 30. This is the first season with Peter Bendix running the team. I follow a lot of Marlins fans being, on social media. A lot of them are upset, which rightfully so, I think, because
I don't know.
I'm with you. But so emotionally, I understand, because as a Marlins fan, it seems I'm going to say why I understand they're upset, but I'm going to say why I think it's different this time around. As a Marlins fan, it feels like they continue to get these players. Christian Yelich, Giancarlo Stanton, all these guys, all of these guys, Jazz Chisholm, and then it seems like they have a good season. They make the playoffs, and then they sell. It's like they never seem to have a direction. And it's like, if you're going to trade away these guys that we grow emotional attachments to and love, but then nothing ever comes from it, it's like it's not worth it as a fan. But I think this time around is different. Peter Bendix comes from the Rays, and we'll talk about the Rays. The Rays are like the poster child for development and just running an organization. And I think this time around, the difference is they went and got established prospects. The Marlins are not great developing their own prospects. And I've always said, if you can't develop your own, go and trade from ones that are already – you got prospects that are groomed by the Orioles. So, we already talked about how good the Orioles farm system was. Augustine Ramirez, groomed by the Yankees. Padres, they gave up 3 of their top 5, like I talked about. They were 3 of their top 5 from the beginning of the year. They were kind of down this year. But you're getting already established prospects. And it feels like they finally have decided on a direction. And I think that's where Marlins fans can, they'll come back down to earth once it settles in that Jazz is going. That's the one that hurts. So, but once you take a step back and look at it, you might suck for a little while. It is what it is. But at least you have a direction now. And I think that's where it's different than the past. So how do you feel about what the Marlins did?
Oh, I 100% condone it. I mean, at this point in the season, you're reflecting and you are like, oh, we are remarkably bad. And we're only a year removed from a playoff team that Kim Ang built. We let her walk off in the offseason. Now she's working for the Cooperstown Hall of Fame, and she fixed our team, and we ended up breaking it again. So now what do? You repeat, reuse, recycle. You have to sell, and you have to rebuild your farm, because your farm at this point is hot garbage. I mean, you have some guys in the bigs who are kind of shaping it out, but
outside of pitching, they have some some good young pitchers. Yori Perez, Max Meyer. Like you got some guys pitching. Sandy's not young per se, but
he's just
healthy. Yeah. When he's healthy, he can be one of the best in the league. We've already seen it. So they're good at pitching, but yeah, you're right. The rest of their farm was abysmal.
And I'm kind of in love with the return that they got. I mean, we're talking about these 2 Orioles guys who we've already talked about, who I think are going to be incredible big league ball players. And they also got a pitcher I really like. You were talking about the top 3 of the top 5 from the Padres. I think Robbie Snelling is a really good pitcher, and his stuff plays. So I think that's at least 3 guys who can really change the way this team is looked at in the near future. So, I'm pretty happy with what they did. If I was a Marlins fan, with all the heartbreak that we've been going through, losing in the playoffs last year and then not even coming close this year, I would be on board with this kind of stuff. It shows me that we're trying. It's better than doing nothing, like the White Sox.
I don't know if, when I was looking this up, they got the 16 prospects back. I don't know if that includes what they got for Arias. I think all of that was just like this last couple weeks or this last week of return. But they also traded Arias away. I know Norby's already played in the majors. Has Kyle Stowers also?
He has.
Yes. Okay, so you're getting a couple guys that may be ready to, might get some playing time this year for them.
Yeah, and they might make the club outright after this all settles, all the dust settles with everything, with the lack of players.
Yeah, I think baseball, like the draft and prospects, is such a crapshoot, right? Like the name of the game when you're trying to rebuild is just getting bodies, almost like getting as many top prospects as you possibly can. And if you get 16 of them, if 5 or 6 can be, if you get 3 really good ones out of it, and you get 5 and 3 more that are just good baseball players, it can change your whole future. So you get 16 prospects back. You got to, it's hard to argue with. How many players did they trade away that, really, I don't know how to word this. Like Tanner Scott, obviously really good. Trevor Rogers, good. But, are they players that need to be held on to? You know what I mean? Like, for what the Marlins need to do. Jazz just wasn't going to live up to his potential here. I think it's the best way to put. I say here in Miami. I think Jazz was one that you needed to move. It hurts because of who he is, but it was very clear. I think he wasn't ever going to reach his potential here, and I think it's just the right. This all feels like the right move for the Marlins.
Well, the way that I look at it, putting value on these guys who they traded, they weren't winning with those guys. Like Jazz, even if he was having his best career year, I don't think the Marlins would be winning. Got Brian De La Cruz. He's good, but they weren't winning with Brian De La Cruz. They weren't winning with Tanner Scott. What good is a premier closer if you're never winning any games? Right. So, I don't think you can really hate on this Marlins fire sale. I think it is exactly what they needed to do.
Yeah, the problem is they didn't have enough Jazz Chisholms. They didn't have enough Brian De La Cruzes, right? Like you have 2 of them, or two or 3 guys, and that's not enough. So it was the right move. The Rays, what do you think about the Rays? The Rays make a ton of moves. They get Randy, Yimi Garcia. Feels like all their pitchers. Like Zach Eflin, Savali. You already mentioned it. It's odd to see the Rays do this.
I think it's a big step for the Rays. We really haven't seen them do this within the last couple years because they've kind of had this same core of prospects who they kind of called up. Wander Franco, that not working out, and because of what he did was such a horrible thing for the Rays because he was such a good ball player. And then losing the World Series in 2020 kind of put some things in perspective. So this year, you're kind of having an okay year, but the East in the American League just keeps getting better and better. So at some point, you kind of have to make a decision. Are we just going to be middle of the road, chilling at middle of the road, barely a playoff team? Or are we going to restart, reset, and then maybe become one of the best teams in baseball? And I think that's really what they're thinking here. So they trade Isaac Paredes, they trade Jason Adam to the Padres, and, they trade Randy. I think that's a big step for the Rays as an organization. So, I like what they did. I think it's hard to see right now the benefits that might come out of it within the next few years, because I think truthfully they'll look like a pretty similar team, if not worse. But I do think they will be good because, next year they get Shane McClanahan back. Like, mean, that's an ace. Like, people forget about Shane McClanahan.
I completely forgot he was hurt.
Yeah.
I forgot all about Shane McClanahan. That happened so early in the season. I forgot all about it.
Yeah, the Rays have good ball players, and they will be able to compete with some of the returns for these trades. So
get Christopher Morel, and
I think it worked.
Get Christopher Morel back for Paredes.
Yeah,
like that's a good player. And like I said before, the Rays are just one of those teams where I trust that they're going to be able to develop the players they get in return. And I don't think it's like a rebuild that's going to take years and years and years. I think the Rays will turn it around it wouldn't surprise me if next year the Rays are right back in the wild card picture, just because of how they just always seem to be there. No matter what they do, they always seem to be there. The other AL East team that we mentioned was the Blue Jays. They also start firing, I don't know if it was a complete fire sale, but they got rid of almost anybody that wasn't Vlad Jr.
I think it's kind of a weird thing with the Blue Jays, because they might have had an okay trade deadline with selling Justin Turner and then also selling Kikuchi and then IKF, and that's great, but then the hammer that I was waiting on dropping was Bo Bichette. And I couldn't believe he didn't get moved to either the Dodgers or the Orioles or someone like that, because he's down this year, obviously. And the Blue Jays, they just keep getting worse and worse every year, it feels like, since their peak, whenever Vlad and Bo Bichette were having incredible years together.
Yeah.
And now it seems like one or the other nowadays. I would have absolutely moved Bichette if I was the Blue Jays. I'm sure there were offers. I'm sure they weren't great because of the year that he's having, but I guess it just didn't work out. I'd be pretty disappointed if I was a Blue Jays fan and we weren't able to move him, even though he's a star player, obviously, but I feel like the return would have set you up for playoff contention, maybe, here soon.
Yeah. I know there was talks of Vlad also. Little less shocked that they held on to Vlad. Just feels like one of those guys that you hold on to as long as you can.
You can't move Vlad, man. He's still – you're not bad enough to move on from Vlad yet. He is one of the premier players in the game still.
Yeah.
He's not like the MVP or anything this year, but he's having a better season than he was an all-star season. And I think that they can still compete. They're just a few pieces away, and we've been saying that for years now in every aspect of they're a few hitters away, they're a few pitchers away, they're a few relief pitchers away. But it truly feels like that every year.
Yeah.
So I think they are not done with Vlad yet. They're not done with this experiment. They're still trying to give it a shot with this core group of guys. And I think it is possible for them to make a playoff push. They just need some more pieces. And that's part of the reason I was shocked not to see Bo Bichette go, to maybe get some pieces that might fill some short-term needs.
It sucks for them because they're being in the AL East makes it so hard.
Yeah.
Like they're in the same position as the Rays. It's like even the Red Sox, like all three of these teams are in such hard positions. Like the Red Sox are a good baseball team, but they're not even close in the AL East race right now. They're 7 games back. So there's just it can be hard to decide on a direction, I guess, is the best way to put it, when you're better than the worst teams in the league, but you're not good enough to compete in your division. So it's like, what direction do you go? And it can be.
I always think that it's better to make any decision, whether it's a good decision in hindsight or a bad decision in hindsight, than to not make any decision at all. And I think the teams that sold some players and some teams that bought some players are all going to come out better than the teams that didn't do anything at all, who are kind of just middle of the pack, like the Tigers, who they traded Flaherty, but they didn't do much else. Like, what's that doing? The White Sox, they didn't move as much as they should have. So, you're kind of stuck still. Like, nothing has changed really. So, I think those are some teams that I would for real call like losers.
That's really everything I wanted to talk about. You got anything else you want to wrap up with, or?
No, I think that's it. I think we're gonna try and do these a little more regularly, whether it's me solo or whether it's with Dave or whether it's with Marcelo. I think that we are for real gonna try and get it going, especially for second half of the season and playoff time, especially playoff time. So expect to see a little more of us. I think it'll be fun going down the stretch.
Yeah, full disclosure, if you follow our network, I take on a lot of projects at one time. It get big for things, and then it's overwhelming. So, that's what ends up happening. But I love having Adam on because your baseball knowledge is just levels above most people I know. So I love that you're willing to come do this. If you're watching this, you already know this, but this will now be on our main YouTube channel, on the No YouTube channel. I think it's going to help bring viewers to that channel and to this pod. So I'm happy about that. Yeah, follow us everywhere. I am going to try to be a lot more active with Twitter and the socials. Again, just more active in general. I will come back on here as much as I possibly can because I do love baseball and I do enjoy talking about it. So anytime I'm free, I will be on here with you. But like you said, we'll definitely do them more frequently. I don't know if it'll be every week. That's completely up to everybody involved, but more frequently for sure.
Expect more from that baseball pod. I'm excited about it. It's been fun this baseball season.
Absolutely. It always is. It always is. Baseball, I feel comfortable saying baseball is back. After last year with all the rule changes, baseball is in a good spot. It's fun. It's enjoyable to watch, and I'm having fun. But with that, that's Adam, and we'll see y'all next time.